Is Kirk Cousins worth $90 million? That's the question that everybody has today because of the tidbit from Charley Walter's article in the Pioneer Press. As you can tell, I'm not in my normal office. We couldn't go on Monday without giving you a live The Real Forno Show, as I am live in my backyard at my Airbnb in Mobile, Alabama. We're going to talk about that and some breaking news just coming in. All of that and more on The Real Forno Show.
Welcome to The Real Forno Show, hosted by Tyler Forness, the managing editor of USA Today's Vikings Wire, writer for the College Football Network, publisher of Substack Run In Shooter, host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, as well as a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Real Forno Show, live on location in Mobile, Alabama. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, is producer Dave. Before we dive into some Kirk Cousins discussion, and yes, we've talked about Kirk Cousins a lot on this show, but I think with this new information, it's important to talk about why this does or doesn't make sense and how it looks from an in-depth perspective, not just surface level, but in-depth. So we're going to talk about that, but breaking news, da-da-da-da! We don't have a breaking news sounder yet. We should think about getting one. TJ Hawkinson officially had surgery today to repair his torn ACL and MCL. It was reported last week by Darren Doogie Wolfson of SKOL North that he had not had the surgery yet due to swelling in the knee. So I think it's important to note that he had the surgery, and now you can start the timetable. Now you can start the clock. I think it's a guarantee that he's going to be placed on the physically unable to perform list, and we will not see him throughout the month of September. I would honestly be surprised if we see him at all in October, and be a little bit less surprised, a little bit more surprised if we don't see him in November either. Two torn ligaments that massively impact your ability to move laterally is a difficult thing to come back from. So we'll see what that looks like, and we'll see if he's going to be able to do anything next year. It may just be a redshirt year for TJ Hawkinson because of how the injury happened and when it happened. Kyler Murray got injured in, I think, November of last year, and because he got injured in November, he was able to come back, but it just could be a redshirt year, and that just kind of is what it is. We'll see. We will see. Let's have a different conversation now. Let's talk about our good old quarterback, Kirky boy Cousins. Now, as you guys have known for a long time, I have not been the biggest fan of bringing back Kirk Cousins for a multitude of reasons. And I would understand why they would do it. I wouldn't be the biggest supporter of it, but I would get it because of how well he was playing before the Achilles injury, yada, yada, bing, bang. We all know those things. But let me read the piece tidbit at the end of Charley Walter's feature column. So he kind of does the same bit as what Sid Hartman did for a long time. You'd have a column, and then he'd have tidbits at the end. And one of those tidbits was on Kirk Cousins. And, quote, "The buzz now is that it will take $90 million guaranteed for 2 years, despite that he's still not yet fully recovered from Achilles surgery in November, to sign free agent Kirk Cousins. If that's the case, he certainly won't get that from the Vikings. Meanwhile, if Brock Purdy falters Sunday against the Lions," now keep in mind, this was written as a Sunday column, "Cousins admire with the 49ers, Coach Kyle Shanahan could push for him," end quote. I think this is a bunch of speculation. I don't necessarily believe this to be 100% factual, and I want to challenge you with this, and I want to give a lot of credit to a friend of the show and my colleague who I respect a lot, Luke Brown of Locked On Vikings. Why is this information out there? Why is this being reported? Who wants you to know this? Ask yourself those questions, because that's important whenever you hear money talk, whenever you hear contract discussions. Somebody wants you to know something. This is just like politics. Like when a Republican talks about a Democrat, like, why is that information getting out there? Why is it being reported by this reporter? Why is it being talked about at all? And it goes vice versa, Democrat talking about a Republican. It's politics. It's playing the media, and it's about getting your information out there the way you want it reported. That's why reporters will develop really good relationships with sources and vice versa. Because if you get your information reported the right way, it can be a massive benefit to you. That doesn't mean it's inaccurate information, but it is really important to understand and have that critical thinking to determine, why is this information getting out there? Who wants me to know this? And how much does it really matter? That's the question that you guys are all going to have to ask yourselves when you see these pieces of information come out. And I highly recommend individually you do your own critical thinking on this. And then that will help you come to a better and more sophisticated and concrete conclusion whether this is a good or a bad idea. This plays a part of it. And we talk about this, we don't. People talk about this within the world of politics all the time. Why the information gets out and how it's presented is oftentimes more important than the information itself. It's called spin. This is spin. This is trying to get your information out the way you want it presented. And I think that's important here.
You also have to ask who's reporting it. Who's putting out this information? And in this case, it's Charley Walter, who's been with the Pioneer Press for ages, been in Minneapolis, reporting on Minnesota sports for forever. Charley Walters, you got to look at his track record. What has been his track record? Most of the time, he's been dead on. There's been a couple times when he's not been, but most of the times he's been dead on. He seems to have a connection with New Jersey and the Wilfs, some way, some shape, some fashion, that have all proven true when it comes to that sort of angle. Whether this is true or not, well, we have yet to find out. And like you said, who wants this information out there and why? You always have to ask those questions, whether it be political or whether it be, in this case, Kirk Cousins wanting $90 million guaranteed over 2 years. Either way, you've got to figure, is it true? Is it a suggestion? Is it trying to move the market? What is it that is the motivation behind this? Are they trying to get some other team to pay Kirk $90 million over 2 years? Would the Vikings entertain that thought? And that's a question. We could game plan that out in our heads. If they say yes, what would it do to the team, and how would it affect the team, and how would that contract be structured?
There's a lot of questions you have to be able to ask with this situation. We're going to dive into some of them, but keep in mind, whenever you hear numbers reported, whenever you hear contract stuff, ask yourself those questions. Why is this being reported? Who wants me to know this? And who is doing the reporting? Ask yourself those questions. And when it comes time to voting for politicians, ask yourself those questions too. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Both sides do it. And both sides do it really well. So make sure to keep your critical thinking caps on, because it's going to be really important to decipher some of this information over the course of time. All right. Now let's talk about Kirk Cousins' contract. Okay. So right now, Kirk Cousins is set to incur $28.25 million in dead cap. All right. Now you take a look. If the Vikings were to extend him before the contract voids on the 15th of March, they would only have $10.25 million that they would have to incur. Okay? 10.25. That's not bad. Okay? Now, that would also include whatever you're going to do by paying him next year. So let's say theoretically 2 years, $45 million straight up. So you're not going to spread it over anything. So that would make his cap hit $55.25 million next year. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm saying that's just how it would look. Okay. But it would take it from $28.5 million in dead money down to $10.25 by signing him to an extension before the contract voids. Because of, as you can see with the prorated bonus, this is where the dead money comes from. All right. This is money that has already been paid to Kirk Cousins in cash, but you have to pay the piper at some point with the salary cap. So that's what we're looking at here. Is it a good move? That's a question that you're going to have to answer on your own. I'm going to give you my opinion. And my opinion is the answer is no. I do not believe it is a good move to give him that kind of capital. I do not believe it is a good move to give him that kind of guarantee over 2 years when he's coming off a torn Achilles. And keep that in mind here. If he was not coming off a torn Achilles and he continued that level of play throughout the entirety of the season, you could easily convince yourself, and the Vikings too, that Kirk Cousins should stay. And you should do whatever you can to bring back Kirk Cousins. Is it the right move? We can debate that for years. We've been debating it since like January of 2018 after the Vikings lost to the Philadelphia Eagles 38-7. Who's going to be quarterbacking this team? Those conversations began then, and they're still going today because there's been so many different layers to this entire thing. Now, how does it look financially? Well, Dave, let's talk about some financial numbers. Let's talk about quarterbacks' average annual value. So we're going to talk about the number average annual value here because average annual value is the number that matters when it comes to quarterback contracts. You can structure it however you want. But if you talk about average annual value, this is what they're going to be making on average every single year. But you can maneuver things like Josh Allen's average annual value is $43 million. But his cap hit was like $16 million or something this year because of how they moved money around. So that matters. Joe Burrow, number one, at $55 million. Justin Herbert, number two, at $52.5. Lamar Jackson at 3 at $52. Jalen Hurts, 4 at $51. Russell Wilson, 5 at $49. Kyler Murray, 6th at $46.1. Deshaun Watson, 7th at $46. Patrick Mahomes, 8th at $45. Josh Allen, 9th at $43. Matt Stafford, Daniel Jones, and Dak Prescott tied at 10th at $40 million a year. Now, keep in mind, Dak Prescott signed his contract 2 years ago, or it was 2 or 3 years ago, and now he's tied for 10th. When he signed that contract, he was at the top or close to it. It matters within the course of time. So Kirk Cousins is about to sign a contract this offseason. So if you were to sign it for $45 million a year average annual value, that would put him tied for 8th with Patrick Mahomes. Now, Mahomes has a weird contract, so it's hard to fully gauge everything with Mahomes. And there were rumors that he signed a modified contract once like the Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert contracts were done to give him some more money. I don't know what all that looks like. I'm going off of over the cap, which is usually has everything fully up to date. But Mahomes' contract I know is structured much differently than others. So just keep that in mind here. You have this team willing to give Kirk Cousins $45 million, essentially guaranteed, because the way that Charley Walters wrote this, and I can't confirm, I have not spoken to Walters, but at $45 million, it essentially means, Dave, a fully guaranteed contract. I apologize if the internet gets a little laggy. We are doing the best we can on location, which is just cool as all hell. So is it worth giving Kirk Cousins that kind of money? Now, let's have a different type of conversation. Let's not talk about him being tied with Patrick Mahomes, because I think that's lazy. Because of when Mahomes signed his contract, he signed essentially a 10-year contract with escalators and rolling guarantees. So it's not a one-to-one comparison. Let's talk about how he would be comparing to guys who have signed contracts recently. He'd be 8th. Deshaun Watson signed his extension 2 years ago. Still making more. Kyler Murray signed his extension, I think, a year and a half ago. Still making more. Kirk would be making more than Daniel Jones. Dak Prescott's going to break the bank again. Don't think he won't. Lamar Jackson, making more. Jalen Hurts, making more. Herbert, Burrow, making more. Russell Wilson, making more for about a month and a half before he gets cut. And that's another part we're going to have a conversation about here. Because when you talk
next year, he's still making more because the Broncos are on the hook for it.
Well, they're on the hook for, I think, $37 million in straight cash. This is just an average annual value conversation. So, and it's a part of the whole thing. So now, if you just look at the MVP-esque play that he had at the beginning of 2023, okay, I can buy into that. I can look at it and be like, this is a good idea. I can talk myself into it. I think Dave can talk himself into it, and I think you guys can too. You have some continuity coming back. You have guys getting healthy, and I think all of that matters. But there's also two caveats. One, the torn Achilles. You have to look at the torn Achilles. The torn Achilles plays a massive factor here. Massive factor. Because you just don't know what you're going to get out of him this season. There have been rumblings talking that he might not play the first few weeks. He may miss the first half of the season. I think there's too many questions. But I will say, expectation, and Kwesi adofo-mensah did talk about this at his press conference with Kevin O'Connell. There's a chance that they have enough information, not gets fixed, but they have enough information in February to be able to make a decision. And if you have enough information in February to make that decision, that can make a massive impact. Because if he misses two games out of 17, I don't think that's going to matter to a team giving him $45 million. If he misses 8, that's going to matter a lot. Because now you're talking about a quarter of the time that you would sign him for on dollars. It's a big difference. And at this point, I want to say this, because we all know my desire to go get the next guy. Kirk gave everything he had to this organization, and we should be very thankful that somebody gave their all to try and make the Minnesota Vikings a Super Bowl winner. It didn't work, and that's okay. That's the nature of football. That's the nature of this business. But now you have to find the next guy. And that's why I'm in Mobile. I want to find the next Minnesota Vikings. I want to find players who are going to be in the future plans of this organization. We're going to revisit this when we start getting more information on Kirk Cousins' Achilles. We're going to talk more about this when we get closer to free agency. Why? It's going to be relevant. We're going to have more data. More data means better decision making. More data means we can come to a decision. More data means a lot of things for the conversation. So we're going to be able to do all of that.
How much more data are we going to get in a month and a half?
With how his rehab and progress is going, we should have enough information on the Achilles. I think he's supposed to be starting to throw the football. He's throwing standing, but I think he's going to start throwing the football by the end of February, soft drop backs, and using that as a part of his rehab. So I think waiting until the end of February is going to give us more information on how the injury is healing. And how the injury is healing is going to make a difference in this conversation, because you're going to know more. And by knowing more, it's always a good thing. Knowledge is power. That's why when it comes to the NFL draft, you want to explore every angle with these guys. You want to look at testing data. You want to look at measurements. You want to look at film. You want to talk to coaches, players around them, and get a sense of who they are as people. The more data you have, the better. And it's the same thing with this Kirk Cousins discussion. I don't think with all the information we have right now, it is a good idea to bring Kirk Cousins back at that price. Now, would I bring back Kirk Cousins at 30? Yeah, I think I'd bring Kirk Cousins back at 30 million. Would Kirk Cousins come back at 30 million? I think the answer is no. And that's the really difficult part here, is we have to understand that my price, is going to be different than his price. And That, I think, is going to be the biggest contention in these negotiations. The amount of guaranteed money was the biggest contention in negotiations when they had these conversations last March. We'll see. We'll see. But I think it was important to bring up and have the general conversation about why, about how this might matter in terms of how much he's going to get paid compared to the rest of the league. Because if you looked at Kirk Cousins and you said, oh, he's like the 10th highest paid quarterback in the NFL, I don't think anybody would be too upset. I really don't. Because he's around the 10th best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, but what can the Vikings afford the 10th best quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah, you can make it work. You can make it work to sign him, sign Hunter, and re-sign both Darrisaw and Jefferson and still have money to play with.
Yeah,
you can make it work if you want to.
Kick the can down the road like the Saints did.
Mm-hmm. And there's merit to that because of how expansive the cap is getting. And now you have most of your bad contracts off the books. So you're going to be a lot more free. And I want to bring this up. Delton makes a really good point. Sometimes it isn't about the money. And I agree, but I also think that when we're talking about Kirk Cousins and how much that building loves him and how much they talked about how much they loved him inside the building and all of those things, I am going to be real with you. My opinion is this is all about the money. Because if it wasn't about the money, he'd be back no matter what. They've told us that. It's about whether the deal can work for both sides. And right now, it doesn't. Will it? We'll find out. My guess is I think they offer him a year, $35 million fully guaranteed, and that's it. They don't offer him a penny more. We'll see what manifests. We'll see how that develops, how that grows, how the more information that comes over the next month and a half is going to impact this decision. I think March 1st, we're going to have a really good sense of where Kirk is at with his rehab. We're going to have a really good sense of what the Vikings are going to want to do. And I think that's going to be a fun topic to revisit and see where we're going to go from here. Right now, I think the Charley Walters piece is likely true. I think my read on it is this. The Vikings are telling you what Kirk is asking for. And they're telling you that they're not going to do it. I also think by releasing this information, it gives other teams, hey, this is what Kirk wants. Can we make that work? Now, they have other ways of getting that information. That's pretty much half of what the combine is gathering information. So we'll see. We'll see. But I want to touch on another part of what Charley Walters wrote, and that is the Russell Wilson. Could the Vikings be interested? I genuinely don't know. But I will say this. Something that matters here, Dave, offset language, okay? If Russell Wilson wants to stick it to the Broncos, he could sign here for a $1.2 million.
Yeah.
And here's what that would mean. No matter what, he's getting paid about $37 million in fully guaranteed money. But he has offset language, so whatever team signs him, that they get to pay that much less because Russell Wilson is already receiving that money from somewhere else. So you could be like, okay, you're going to make this no matter what. It would help our team if you took this from us and the rest came from Denver. What do you say to that? He's probably going to be like, I'm in. Because he's not losing any money. And nobody's going to give him more.
It's sort of a way to cheat the cap. Because at that point, the Vikings would be getting a, quote, $37 million quarterback for literally pennies, vet men, that they can now take that, what would have been for his price if they wanted him straight up, and dump that into a guard or, defensive line or whatever free agents you want of your choice. They now have more room to get that, to sign Danielle Hunter to an extension, to do whatever. right, turns their fancy, they would have the more money available to do that, as well as sign a rookie or draft a rookie.
Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of different things, and well, I'm really excited to kind of see how it plays out. I also want to give a shout out to everybody in watching live right now. 116 people watching live. Dave, I believe that is a record for us. Thank you guys for joining us here as I sit in the backyard of my Airbnb in Mobile, Alabama, where it is a chipper. I think it's like 48 degrees out here right now, which is
it's warmer
honestly,
here.
It's about the same temperature in Minnesota right now. They broke the state record of 50 degrees on January 29th. So it's a great one. I do want to shout out our sponsor, who Underdog Rescue. They got a bunch of new doggies in, and the wife and I have been talking about maybe getting another one. Who knows? Well, let's be honest. We've been talking about potentially getting another one since Eclair was had passed, and there's some really cute ones, including a couple of Frenchies. There's a lot of there's a few Labs in there. There's a few Shepherds. If you like Pekingese or Maltese, the smaller breeds, there's a lot of great stuff, and you can save a life by taking one of these dogs in. And if you can't commit to adopting a dog, become a foster or donate. Help save lives. Help bring animals from overcrowded shelters up to Minnesota so we can give them better lives. And you can do that all with Underdog Rescue. UnderdogRescueMN.com. They are wonderful people. I want to talk briefly before we go, Dave, about Mobile. I am here in Mobile, Alabama, and we are here for the Senior Bowl. I want to talk really quick before I go about a couple players. One, Byron Murphy. I know Daniel Jeremiah mocked him and to the Vikings about a week and a half ago. He will not be here anymore. He opted out of the Senior Bowl, and I think a lot of that has to do with some of the buzz he's getting. I'll be honest, I don't know how much he has to prove by being here, but he won't be here. I will, however, be watching Tavondre Sweat and seeing how he does in one-on-one drills, how he does in run situations, and I think that's going to be really fascinating to watch. Quinyon Mitchell, the Toledo corner, I'm going to have my eyes on too. I watched his film last weekend. He's fun, Dave. He's fun. He's good. Great ball skills. He has 45 passes defended in his college career. 45. Wow. That's a lot. A lot of the really good corners have around like 20. But you also have to remember, sometimes with passes defended, if you're that good, they just don't throw your way. But in the MAC, you usually throw to your alpha and you just kind of deal with the corner opposite you. So there's levels to it. I'm going to be watching a lot of different things. I want to make a comment, though. Dane Brugler from The Athletic reported that Bo Nix is likely to start receiving top 10 hype if he has a great week this week. I'm going to ask around, and I'm going to ask people that I respect that have a completely different opinion of Bo Nix than myself, because I want to understand, because I don't get it. I don't understand the hype around Bo Nix. And if you want more information, go to our homepage and check out the SKOL search that we did on Bo Nix, where I talked all about my opinion on him. But I'm going to ask a lot of questions. And I genuinely don't get it, because he played in a smoke and mirrors offense that hid everything he can't do and just emphasized the things he could. There's merit to that, but in the NFL, you can only do that so long before you get truly exposed. Like if Brock Purdy was playing in a super vertical offense, he'd get exposed. He's playing in the perfect offense for him with the perfect play caller. So it's working. And I want to understand more about this Knicks thing, and I'm going to report back. You're also going to want to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, you're going to want to ring the bell. Why? After practice, there are 6 total practices. I will be putting up a short, just a brief synopsis recap of what's going on. Either I will be putting it up or Dave will be putting it up for me. But we will be getting it to you to talk about some brief things. And you know what? If there's more than just 60 seconds worth, because that's all it allows, we'll do a few and we'll talk about a couple individual players. All right. We're going to have content for you. We're going to have it coming hot and heavy, and we are going to have a lot. I'm going to be at the Senior Bowl tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we're going to have a great amount of content for you. And I'm really excited to be able to talk it all through with you guys when I get back. We're going to have something for you Wednesday. I don't know how that's going to work because we have our media breakfast on Wednesday. David's at 3:30 p.m.
Breakfast at 3:30 p.m.?
They decided it was better to have that in the afternoon for the players and the media. So they're going to have the breakfast at 3:30 p.m. So we will have something. I don't know if it will be timely. I don't know if it will be pre-recorded. We're going to figure something out. So we'll have that. Make sure that you ring the bell, because when we have something, you're going to want to check it out, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Delton, I will stay safe down here. Luckily, we're not going to have any rain until after I leave, and I am excited for that. Every year, a practice gets canceled because of rain, and it goes to an indoor facility, and we can't attend as media. Like NFL Network and ESPN can. I can't. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a great time, and we're going to bring you a lot of information. You're also going to want to check out VikingsWire.usatoday.com for some more long-form thoughts. And if you're on Twitter, I'll try and answer questions there too. It's going to be a great time down here in Mobile, Alabama, and Vikings First and SKOL has all of your information, as I believe I am the only Vikings beat reporter down in Mobile. There's a chance Alec Lewis is down here. I know he's from the state, but to my knowledge, I'm the only one down here, and you are not going to want to miss a
I know Matthew
single
Collar
moment.
says he has a representative down there, but he didn't say who.
Who writes for him anymore? Anybody?
Don't
Now,
know.
I don't mean that in jest. I'm being serious. I don't know who all writes for him anymore.
I don't know. So, good question.
Yeah. Well,
This is Senior Bowl week, and the majority of our content this week is centered around the Senior Bowl.
Yep.
Except for 2 shows. Well, even 2 bloggers may have a lot of Senior Bowl stuff in it. But for the NFC North roundup, who will be king, I'll be hosting, which means it'll be live on Vikings First and SKOL. We're going to record either Wednesday or Thursday, and we're going to welcome Detroit to the club of playoff heartbreak. Should be a fun show.
yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun, and it's going to be a great time. And I thank you all for joining. I thank you all for watching the show tonight. And look, I think this is really cool. I've got my nice mic. I've got a nice webcam. I've got my ring light. This isn't the same setup as normal, and I think this is fun. And we're going to have a lot of great stuff for you, and I'm really excited to be able to deliver it. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining here tonight. I am Tyler. He is Dave. The one thing we always say, SKOL Vikings, baby. And you know what? I'm eating some oysters this weekend, baby. You know, barbecue's fine, whatever. Oysters.
Hey,
Let's go.
brisket's good down there too. SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!